Hello, everybody. I am joined by Jonathan Little for another live edition of the PokerNews podcast. I, of course, have my co-host Brent Harrington, who is straight trying to show off his hot soccer body from college.
Yeah, that was like 30. I was 30 then.
I mean,
But,
okay,
yeah,
well, welcome
I'm
to the real
definitely
world.
don't look like that anymore.
No.
That's for sure.
Welcome to the real world, old man. But I do know Jonathan Little seems like he never ages a day. But
hello, welcome. I'm happy to be here.
But he has so many accolades and he is a author, a best-selling author. In fact, he's been a tournament coach ever since I've known him, a just skilled sort of professional in all sorts of avenues of the poker community, and in fact has been nominated also for an American Poker Award this year. So congrats.
Thank you. I'm very fortunate, and I'm happy to be me.
Yeah.
That was a voted on category, right? Like just fans vote. That's the category
it is. It's interesting that the other people in the categories made most of their success from YouTube, but I have this gigantic unseen group of people who follow me. I have a huge email list of people who I teach to play poker on a regular basis. And it's kind of interesting that a lot of people are like, why is Jonathan Little in the category? But it's because I help a lot of people, just not out in the open like a lot of other people are doing it. I'm not necessarily entertaining people. I'm just helping them improve their lives.
I was just going to say, it's actually and there is a little bit of like a divergence, I guess, in the categories, because you've got the Doug and Daniel, which are clearly, this is like the TMZ, I feel like.
Oh, gosh.
The hype buzz scene. And then you have the Andrew Nemi, Jonathan Little section. And what's interesting, I think, about you, Jonathan, is you're kind of like a, by the way, I'm like sick and I'm dying inside. So like I'm not at my A game, but I want to say you're like a dark horse in general, because you've been providing people with this type of information for so long. And I, for one, especially as someone who creates media on the regular, it's like people are the most interested. The casual poker fan at this point is so much more advanced than they were when I first started in poker. And what they really want and what they're really interested in is learning how to look at hands, how to analyze hands. And I feel like that's what you're giving people. And a lot of poker players are really they don't want to give that information away. They're very inclusive about keeping it. So talk to us a little bit about what kind of has inspired you along this road to always continue to share your knowledge and share your information.
That's a very big question. So, I mean, a long time ago, I was helped by a lot of players. Whenever I was first starting to learn the game, I found a group of people playing the same game that I was playing, but they were better than me and they were willing to help me. And in turn, I just started helping the people who were coming up and wanted to improve their games. And I've just always done it. I mean, every day I wake up and I ask myself, what can I do to make things a little bit better for people? And I try to do it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's interesting you say a lot of people are more advanced. So I don't actually think that's necessarily the case, because a lot of new people have been finding poker from things like Twitch and YouTube, people who don't know anything about poker. And I worry now that they're going to think poker is a lot of people kind of hating on each other. That's not a good thing for poker, in my opinion. Maybe it is, because a lot of people love drama. But at the end of the day, I think we want to do everything we can to make poker look like an upstanding place where, you know, if you do wrong, you should get called out for doing wrong. But at the same time, I'm not a big fan of people being taken out of context in general. And I'm not a big fan of people just hating for no good reason.
But welcome to the social media internet day.
But does it have to be that way? I don't think it has to be that way. I mean, like, I have a lot of followers, and I'm not doing anything like this. And
you need a big beef, John. You just have to find someone to beef with.
It's Andrew Nemi. He's clearly my nemesis now, because Doug has Daniel, so Andrew's mine, and
yeah,
that's it.
His name is like almost nemesis anyway, right? Andrew Nemesis.
Exactly.
I hear what you're saying, though, and it's interesting. Actually, I just got back from an 888 event, and I was having a conversation with Dominic Nietzsche where I was asking him to explain implied odds and reverse implied odds, and he was like, I mean, at this point, don't you think like people don't care about that? It's like nobody. That's like so 2007, and you know, he's like, people want hand analysis, and I said 100% people want hand analysis. That's true, but I do think that there is. You're definitely right in that. I think that we're forgetting that there are also that part of our job is to create an environment where more people are coming into poker, because that is the only way that this game can keep going. That's the only way to sustain this type of an economy.
Yeah, it's tough to know what actually brings people in. So I definitely think things like the things that poker stars do, having athletes and celebrities representing the game and getting out in front of people, I think that kind of thing is great. I know a lot of poker players like myself think, why are you not sponsoring the poker players? But I understand that a lot of poker players don't actually get people in the door. They may help people stay in the door. Like if you have someone like myself who can teach people to play, they get better, they'll play more, and they'll enjoy the game more because no one likes to just play and lose. But the actual poker players need to figure out how to make the game sustainable. And I don't think they're working so hard to do that. Instead, a lot of them are just trying to tear down each other. And that's not the route to success, at least in my opinion. I could be wrong. Maybe we're just supposed to all destroy each other and see who's left around. But
We could just go full Hunger Games.
I don't want to play the Hunger Games. I just want to be nice and have everyone get along.
You're so refreshing right now. I can't I feel like I've been so jaded this last month because it's the same. Like when you're just inundated with this like toxic kind of negativity, it just rubs off on you. It's so hard not to. Also, then I'm like everyone in poker's an asshole. Like why is everyone such a jerk? And it's not true.
That's what I don't want the generic poker player to think, because if someone finds someone like on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and they are basically calling other people in poker jerks, then the other people in turn are calling them jerks. Everyone just thinks everyone's a jerk. Or it's almost like politics. You find your side and you stick by your side.
Oh, your side.
It's time to do this recording. You find your side and then you just stick with it almost blindly. And we don't need to have sides. I mean, we all need to work together to make poker a good place and a place where people can go and not have to worry that they're going to find themselves on the wrong side or something like this. It's just a bunch of unnecessary drama, in my opinion, but I've never been a fan of drama.
Mutually beneficial for everyone, creating that kind of a space. Well, I know that in fact, you've been coaching for ages, and also a lot of your books are really focused on making sure that you're, teaching people and moving people forward in the game. But PokerCoaching.com, you've got like a free trial going, which actually this is really exciting for me because I feel like I've always been timid, and I can't be the only one about jumping on the board of getting coaching and jumping on that train because, sometimes it's expensive, but also it's like putting your money where your mouth is to give it away a little bit for free, because I'm always like, is it really worth it? Or will this really work? So talk to us a little bit about what you have going on there.
So at PokerCoaching.com, there are two main facets of it. There are a lot of interactive quizzes. So just imagine a quiz like in school where you get presented a situation and you have to say what you would do in the spot. Would you fold, call, raise small, or raise big? You select an answer, and then I have a video explaining why I like the play I like and why I don't like the plays I don't like so much. Then that's pre-flop. Then you go to the flop, have some more questions. The turn, have some more questions. And the river, then you have some more questions. And if you take enough of these quizzes, you'll start to see where you play, at least like I play. Maybe, what I play is certainly not perfect, but you at least know where you're playing like I'm playing. And then also you'll know spots where maybe you really differ from my opinion. Like maybe you'll find on the turn you play really differently than me. Then you can try to figure out maybe you're not bluffing enough, or maybe you're value betting too thinly. Who knows what it could be. So anyway, there are a lot of quizzes, something like 200. I also have quizzes there by Matt Affleck and Alex Fitzgerald. They've come on board to make some quizzes too, so that we have cash game and online tournament content in addition to live tournament content. So the other part is each month I present a homework question that's usually a pretty big question. It takes the students quite a while to do. This month's question is something to the effect of, like, say you have 20 big blinds, everyone folds to you in the cutoff. Everyone is playing 20 big blinds effective in a tournament. What is your strategy? Right here, what hands are you raising with? Or are you using a raise, limp, and fold strategy, or an all-in limp or fold strategy? There are a lot of strategies you can use right off the bat. So then you say what you do pre-flop. Then, okay, you raise, only the big blind calls, flop comes whatever, 8, 7, 6. Your opponent checks. What is your strategy with each hand in your range? So now we have to, narrow out our range if we're limping some hands or shoving some hands, because we didn't do that, we raised. So then they say what they do there. I think in this scenario, it goes check, check on the flop, turn is some blank. The opponent bets. Now what do we do with each part of our range? And I have a program, the Float the Turn Range Analyzer, that can let you easily visually see how you play each hand in your range. So you can narrow them as you go through. And the goal of this is to try to have people find holes in their game. Like what a lot of people do on 9-8-2 or whatever the board is, they bet with all their best hands and their draws, and they just check and fold to a turn bet with everything else. And that means that if they raise pre-flop and then it goes check, check on the flop, they just lose almost every time. And that's a problem. You don't want to have holes like that in your game. So we're working to have people develop a good, fundamentally sound strategy And then from there, learn how to adjust to various different types of players. So anyway, that's each month. Everyone submits their homework answer. I go through all of them. I'm actually doing it tomorrow in a live webinar. That's going to probably take 3 or 4 hours. And it's a lot of fun. So I do have a free trial there for 1 week. I try to make everything I have somewhat free in some way. So a lot of my books, you can get them on Audible for free if you never signed up for Audible. And pokercoaching.com, I tell everyone, go there, sign up for a week and just binge it. Go through the whole site and then cancel on me. But I want everyone to get better at poker. And if that's what they want. I mean, a lot of people don't want to get better at poker. They want to be entertained or whatever. But if you want to get better at poker, you might as well use all the free stuff you can find.
It's great too, because even when for example, when I'm training someone to try to get them to be a presenter and trying to go through the back end stuff, I was just doing it this weekend, and I was like, I just want to leave you for a little while. Like you try to upload it yourself. You try to figure it out yourself, because it is true that people, they'll remember mistakes or also things that went right better that they did themselves versus someone's just straight up telling them right away, right?
Yeah, well, so I have another training site that's basically where I just upload a lot of videos and have question and answer webinars. And I've learned that a lot of people will just load up a video and have a beer and then pass out in their chair or whatever. And that's what a lot of people do with Twitch and YouTube, for example, and they think that is studying poker. Like if you ask a lot of people, what are you doing to study poker? They say, oh, I watch poker on TV or I watch someone stream. And that's not really studying. That's just hanging out. And the way I used to always watch videos is I would pause the video before every single action the video maker was about to do. And I would say or write down what I'm going to do if I was in their shoes. And sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. You figure it out along the way and you learn to play like the better players. So instead of telling people to do that, I required them to do that in the quizzes where they have to click and commit to an answer. And you're right, though. People learn from, it's like the closest thing I could do to let you actually play poker.
Right.
And I give you feedback in real time. I mean, a lot of people would love to have a pro sit behind them at the poker table and tell them what they think of their play on every street. And this kind of does that.
And it's interesting because actually I've been learning, the more I've been studying about sort of like the analytics and big data and the way that people consume content, is actually that most people are so disactively engaged in the way that they're consuming content that they're actually on 2 devices at any given time. So most people are watching, their TV or whatever. Maybe they have their, YouTube on TV and they're also on their phone, or they're on their computer and they're also on their phone or whatever, which is crazy. It's like everybody's watching like 6 things, but just passively like watching all of them.
And you're watching 6 things, but not watching anything really.
Yeah. And I definitely agree. I think that's the way that most people are consuming poker content. And that's something I'm trying to fight against, which is difficult, but you have this whole poker coaching thing, but you also recently this summer at the PCA, I mean, you've been commentating. I've heard you commentate lots of times, and I think there was a lot of positive feedback about your commentary. I think by virtue of the fact that you have been writing and you've been a poker coach for ages, you're in a spot where you can talk through a lot of hands, and it makes sense. Even the way you're saying, like, I would pause it and I would say, this is what I would do here. So it makes sense that you're sort of a natural in the world of commentating, and you were doing that this year at the PCA. I unfortunately was not there this time, but talk to us a little bit about what that experience was like.
Well, I'm a natural because I've been doing it for 10 years. My first training videos were not good. I know about probably 6 years ago, we started consolidating stuff and pruning out some of the old content. And we had like 500 videos that I had made up like 6 years ago. So it's probably like 3,000 now or something. But I have a lot of practice, and I'm certainly not good at speaking, maybe even today, or certainly not naturally. But you learn as you go. But anyway, the PCA was great. They really built out the coverage, which was a lot of fun. I mean, instead of having to listen to the same 2 people talk for 12 hours per day, every day for a week, they really mixed it up. So they had 4 pros, poker pros like myself there. And then they had 3 other commentators, like not the poker players, but the commentators. And they would just mix us up. And it went really well, I think. It was very well received. It was a huge production. They had something like over 100 people on their crew there. And it was a lot of fun. I would certainly do it again if they would have me.
Who did you find that you kind of mixed the most with? I always think it's interesting because sometimes the people you would think go together the best are actually maybe too much alike or something.
I think I probably went best with James because James is just really easy. Joe Stapleton, I didn't know what he was talking about half the time because all his jokes are based on television and whatnot. And I don't know anything about television or comedy because I'm busy playing poker. So I just went along with it. Basically, I'm like, oh yeah, you're a pickle Rick, sure. And
I wouldn't know either.
That's very funny, by the way. The pickle Rick thing's hilarious.
Yeah, sure.
For us TV people.
Yeah. So, but it was fun. It was a good time. I never felt uncomfortable there. I mean, the only time I felt briefly uncomfortable is we would do a break desk segment where it was live. They could see us, and we would have to figure out which hands we're going to go over. And I was really good once we got into the hands, but at the beginning, sometimes, like, Joe would just throw me some random question, and I'm like, oh, I don't know. I didn't even think about this. And it's slightly unnerving, but you get used to it. I mean, it was the only other time I've done live break tests like that was at the World Series this summer, and sometimes rocky, but you get through it. And I think that people are somewhat less forgiving when they know things are live and there are a bunch of cameras staring at you, and you don't really know if things are going to work right. And usually they do, but sometimes they don't. And we figured it out. At the PCA, they had the producer in my ear, and I really didn't need to hear the producer. I just needed to kind of be led along by the other commentator. And so I learned to turn that down. And so you learn little tricks. And once you figure out the things that bother you, you get rid of the things that bother you, and then you're good to go.
Oh my gosh.
But all in all, it was a lot of fun.
Every time I'm on live TV, I'm like, no, I don't want that in my ear. Like, I want to be focusing on what's happening right now in front of me. Please let me be present. Everyone can see me. And you're like, when you're listening, you're like, almost like your eyes like go that way.
I mean, whenever I play poker, I do it in complete silence. I don't listen to music or anything like this. And I like the desktop of my computer is completely blank. Like, I want no distractions. And someone talking to me in my ear is definitely the worst distraction you could throw at me. But we got through it, I think it went well.
Well, I know you recently became a father, and this is actually something I just did. I mean, shameless promotion for Andrew Nemi, I guess, at this point, but I just did a podcast with him and his girlfriend, the Tells podcast, and they had Heath and I on to talk about, being married and relationships. And they were basically, his girl Boosie was saying, there's just not that many people in poker who are married. It's kind of, especially compared to other industries where people are like 35 years old, not a lot of people have kids, not a lot of people are married. So it's Valentine's Day. It'll be the day after Valentine's Day when this goes up. But talk to me a little bit about what the process of fatherhood has looked like in conjunction with being a professional poker player.
My baby's out here yelling right now. I don't know if you can hear him.
Dad, what are you doing?
Saying, what are you doing? Actually, it's past his nap time and he should be asleep right now. But so I knew I wanted to start a family about 3 or so years ago. So I started to try to figure out a way to transition away from playing so much live poker, which kind of meant building pokercoaching.com and focusing more on that as opposed to playing poker 3 weeks per month and being home 1 week per month. Oh, come here. Can we see my baby?
Yes, come on over. Auntie Chardonnay wants to say hi.
Here's James.
Oh, geez.
Say hello. No, he's not going to say hello.
Hi, James.
I'm like, I don't even want to make noise because I just want his face.
I'm waving. You can't see
hello,
it, but
James.
I'm waving.
Okay, you have to go take a nap now. Okay. Oh, no, that's the microphone. Bye-bye.
I'm dead. Oh my gosh. That is not your baby.
That's my baby. He's a good baby.
He's so chubby. Did you see those cheeks? He's like a little like Gerber chubby baby. Those are my favorite, by the way.
He looks exactly like I looked like whenever I was a baby, and I was a baby model, believe it or not. And
he could be
I didn't know that.
Yes, my parents brought me up to New York City to have me model for Macy's and almost Jell-O, but luckily we dodged that bullet with Bill Cosby. So
hysterical. So I'm pretty sure that your baby could also be a baby model.
He could be. I won all of the baby pageants as a baby. We had all these trophies. I used to beat all of the pretty little girls whenever I was a baby because they liked my fat cheeks, and I would wave at the judges and hey judges and blow them kisses. And
who would have ever guessed? This is little known facts about Jonathan.
Yeah,
Little
I had no idea.
Guessed.
You would not think that it would be true, but somehow it is.
I was also wondering, you have a bunch of like medals in the background. I'm like, is that field day? Are you a spelling bee champ? What are those?
Those are from running, marathons and whatnot. So
marathon runner and a baby model. This is what you didn't know
the
about
American
Jonathan.
Dream. Baby model.
That's exactly it. What were we talking about? Oh, babies. So yeah, anyway, I decided to try to find a way to stay home more in New York City. So my wife is a lawyer here and she doesn't want to move. She has a good job and she wants to live within walking distance of work. So that creates some strains. We have to be able to afford a Manhattan apartment, which is not very cheap. And also I have to be able to stay home and do this somehow. So I had to figure out how to go about doing that. And I thought a very big, immersive training site would be a very good way to go about it. And that's what we did. So now I stay home about 3 weeks per month. It varies from month to month, but that's roughly how it goes. And I still travel to play, and it's been good.
Who takes care of the little prince when you're traveling?
So we have a nanny here 3 days per week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. My wife's dad comes over Monday and Tuesday to watch him. He enjoys that. That's fun for him.
Yeah.
And we have him on the weekends. So whenever I'm out of town, I mean, in theory, I'm just completely replaceable because one of the three of them, my wife, the nanny, or my father-in-law, one of them is here every time. So they don't even need me. I'm irrelevant.
Yeah, you're just extra.
Oh, no.
Extra with those cheeks.
Yeah. I wanted to say something in the chat. Somebody was making a joke. They said that when they started using the float to turn app back when you mentioned it, they started losing. And I was like, wait, like for how long? And then he's like, oh, I was joking. He said the app is helpful, and it's like, I was like, oh, okay. I was trying to get down to the bottom of it. I thought it was pretty funny.
I mean, that's another good example of just a completely free thing. I know there are a lot of push fold apps out there that make you pay, and a lot of them have incorrect ranges anyway. And I decided to make one that was accurate and free and easier to use because I want to make stuff easy. And at the end of the day, if you create goodwill for people, when they finally do decide to go deep on something like poker coaching, in my whatever the right word is, and I teach people to play poker, right? Whenever they want a lot of poker coaching, they will come to me down the road. And if you give them the tools necessary to become decently competent and not lose all their money playing poker, they're going to think of you whenever they want to get more coaching or to actually improve their game. So I do a lot of things just trying to help people out.
And when you get even just a little bit better, it definitely, I mean, it makes you fall in love with the game a lot more.
Well, yeah, because a lot of people, when they start, they lose a lot. And then if you can make them lose a little bit, even if they're not winning, like, wow, this is great. I'm not losing every single time. And then sometimes they become small winners and they're really happy. And sometimes people become big winners. I mean, I've had multiple people who are very, very well-respected pros come up to me and say they started on my Float the Turn site 8 years ago. And
oh, that's got to be pretty awesome.
And these are kids who, like, I want to go to get coaching from them. Like, I look up to these people as people who are better than me, and here they are telling me that they got their start through my stuff. And that's nice to hear because most of the people I teach, I think, are like middle stakes live players to some extent at this point. And there are a lot of those people out there, and some of them do eventually rise to the top. I mean, every year it seems like one of my students wins a bracelet at the World Series, and I don't even really know them. They just study my stuff. And if you help enough people, a lot of people will have some success.
So obviously now you've got the baby on board and you're trying to be at home more. What does the WSOP look like for you this summer?
As far as I know, assuming I'm not doing any commentary because I've not been contacted about that, I try to plan everything way too far in advance. I'm like, let's figure it out. It's time to go. It's already February. So maybe if there's commentary, this may change, but I think I'm going out there for the last 3 weeks. The last 3 weeks have most of the $3,000 and higher no limit tournaments for the most part that are Hold'em or Pot Limit Omaha. And that's what I think makes the most sense. I know the first few weeks, besides the $1 million tournament, which is still too big for me, it's mostly $500 and $1,000 stuff. And those tournaments are great, especially if you're trying to grow your bankroll, but I'm trying to play more like $5,000 and $10,000 tournaments in general, just in terms of getting the most money invested in the shortest period of time. So the last 3 weeks is roughly what I'm doing.
Man, it's like, it's just such an interesting thing, I think, for being a poker player, where everyone I talk to, it's everyone has to just change their whole life basically in the summer. And it's long, and it just gets longer and longer.
Every summer, I think after the World Series is over, I always tell myself I'm just not doing that again. Yeah. and every year I'm back there, so it seems to happen. I have been playing shorter and shorter stretches though, especially since I've had my son, because what I do now is I just try to find really high value tournaments that require not a lot of time where you can invest a lot of money. So good examples of that are, well, European Poker Tour tournaments used to be great for that because you could go and you could play a 5 or 10K main event, and a few 10K side events, and a 25K and all this stuff in a week. Now at the Hard Rock in Florida, they have a lot of tournaments like that where they have a bunch of events just piled right on top of each other. And that's really good because I know I'm going to be there the whole 8 or 9 days. I can book my flights and my hotel, and that saves a little bit of money there. And it's good because you can play a lot of volume in a short period of time. That's really what I'm trying to do now in terms of going to play poker, as opposed to going to play a random $3,500 tournament somewhere, which is a good tournament. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not as profitable as the other series.
It's not, there's all these additional elements of your expected value now that you have a fam. And it's interesting because you mentioned, that your father-in-law comes over and takes care of, your handsome little prince a couple days a week. You're clearly a very pragmatic person and logical, and you're a planner and all these things. But what is your in-laws and your own family and your wife? What are their thoughts and responses to just being a professional poker player as a job?
I think everyone's always been pretty much fine with it. My wife's mom was a little bit turned off to it initially. It seems like, I don't know what percentage of it is, but let's say 20% of people have some bad association with gamblers because like their grandfather was a gambler and gambled away all the money one night or whatever. My grandmother was adamantly against gambling. She's like, "Oh, you're a gambler. That's terrible." And it is what it is. But my mother-in-law has seen the other things that I do. She knows that I've written 14 books and I have training sites and a bunch of students and all these things. And I'm not a random degenerate gambler. I'm actually trying to do things to help people better their lives. And it's a little bit better when you phrase it that way. But everyone's happy enough with what I do. I don't think anyone has much of a problem with it. I think the times that relationships start to get strained are when people go into them with different expectations. And like I've always been a poker player since I met my wife. And so she knew that is what I did. And traveling is nothing new. What happens to a lot of people, though, is they play a decent amount locally, let's say, and they end up grinding up like 100K bankroll and they want to go start traveling to play poker. But their significant other didn't necessarily sign up to have their spouse gone a week or two each month, and then there are problems. So I think it's very important that everyone has realistic and accurate expectations going into any venture.
Amen. Amen. And good advice on this post-Valentine's Day for all poker players in their lives. Well, I don't want to keep you much longer, but I know there's a lot of places to find you. And I'm sure that a lot of our listeners who don't already know you, most of them I'm sure do, but who don't already know you, where do they find you? All the different places. And also, where can they vote for you as their personality of the year this year?
Goodness. So you can vote for me for the personality of the year at jonathanlittlepoker.com/APA, stands for American Poker Awards.
Easy.
Try to make it easy. I don't want to tell you to go to americanpokerawards.com/award-whatever. jonathanlittlepoker.com/APA. Couldn't be easier. You can find me on Twitter at Jonathan Little. If you send me a message there, I always reply to everyone. That's just the right thing to do. And you can go to pokercoaching.com and get the free 1-week trial. Also, I have a site, jonathanlittlepoker.com, where I post a weekly podcast where I go through a fun hand. And also I have a weekly blog where I post some sort of strategy article or video blog or something like that. And
basically all the books you want to find. I was looking yesterday and you can find all Jonathan Little's books on his website, whatever you want. The ebooks, the actual books, the everything you want.
You have a lot of stuff. Try to find something that is exactly right for you. Don't be overwhelmed by the amount of content, but search for whatever game you're trying to beat. And I probably have some content on it.
Jonathan, you're just a breath of fresh air, which I really needed today since my air is full of just toxic negativity and also sickness. But it is always so good to catch up with you. And it's always so good to see you whenever I can. And yeah, thank you so much for taking the time, and maybe just go cuddle up with those cheeks. Take a little nap with
that. Yeah, he's sleeping in his crib now. He's a good sleeper. I'm going to go get in the crib with him and take a nap.
Just cuddle up. Why not? Why not?
That's not true. I'm not going to do that. That would be a horrible decision.
It's so awkward. That would be so awkward. Let's keep this in the big boy bed. All right, cool. Thank you so much, Jonathan.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.